I never thought a single misdirected text message could end with me standing on a helicopter pad in the middle of the night, a mafia boss's hand steady on my shoulder, watching my old life disappear into the city lights below. But that's exactly where Eliza Reynolds found herself. And the man standing beside her. He wasn't her captor. He wasn't her enemy. He was something far more complicated than that. Let me take you back to where it all started. Because this story, it's about a woman who made one mistake with her phone, and discovered that sometimes the wrong number is exactly the number you need. Pause, 2 seconds, the moment everything changed. The fluorescent lights in the clinic hummed with that particular frequency that makes your teeth ache. Eliza sat on the examination table, paper crinkling beneath her, staring at the grainy black and white image in her trembling hands. 8 weeks. That's how far along she was. 8 weeks pregnant with a man who had vanished into thin air 3 weeks ago. Mark Tanner. Investment banker. Charming smile. Expensive suits. The man who'd swept her off her feet a year ago with confidence and generosity that seemed too good to be true. Turns out, it was. She stepped out into the September rain, Manhattan glittering around her like scattered diamonds in puddles, beautiful and completely indifferent to the crisis unfolding in her chest. The ultrasound was tucked safely in her coat pocket, protected from the downpour. Protected from everything except the uncertainty that gnawed at her. 3 weeks of silence. No calls. No texts. No explanation. Just, gone. Narrator shift, protective tone. Now, every man listening knows that feeling when something's wrong. When the pieces don't fit. When the person you trusted most suddenly becomes a stranger. Eliza felt it that night, standing in the rain, one hand on her stomach, the other clutching her phone. She needed to tell someone. Anyone. Her best friend Jenna was somewhere in Europe, her phone spotty at best. But Eliza couldn't hold this alone anymore. The weight of it was crushing her. She pulled out her phone, rain spattering the screen. Found Jenna's last message, a blurry photo of the Eiffel Tower. She attached the ultrasound image, her fingers numb from cold and fear. Wish you were here. I could really use my best friend right now. I'm pregnant, Jen. Mark's gone. I don't know what to do. Her thumb hovered over send. One press. One moment. One mistake that would change absolutely everything. She sent it. Pause, 1 second, and immediately, something felt wrong. Music CUE, low drone begins. The stranger the response came faster than it should have. Jenna was supposed to be asleep in Paris, time zones away. But the notification lit up her screen within seconds. The message made her blood freeze in her veins. Is it mine? Eliza stared at the words, confusion turning slowly to horror. She looked at the message thread. And that's when she saw it. This wasn't Jenna's number. The contact said, Mark, business, in her phone. A number he'd given her months ago for work emergencies. A number she'd never actually used. A number that apparently wasn't his anymore. I'm so sorry. Wrong number. Please ignore. She typed it fast, panic making her fingers clumsy. The response was immediate. Who is this? Something about those 3 words felt like a trap closing. Direct. Demanding. Dangerous. I'm sorry, but I don't give my name to strangers. Again, I apologize for the mix-up. Have a good night. She set the phone down on her kitchen counter, hands shaking. This was fine. Just an embarrassing mistake. The stranger would delete the image, forget about it, move on. Her phone chimed again. You texted Mark's old number. Narrator shift, tension building. Now, that's when fear truly takes hold. Not the jump scare kind. The slow, creeping kind that starts in your gut and spreads like ice water through your veins. How do you know Mark? Eliza typed it with trembling fingers. The response took longer this time. Long enough for her imagination to run wild with possibilities, each one worse than the last. We had business together. He owes me. Business. The word carried weight, implied things she didn't want to consider. Mark was an investment banker. Legitimate. Respectable. Wasn't he? What kind of business? Another pause. Then, the kind people don't walk away from. Pause, 2 seconds, Eliza's legs gave out. She sank to her apartment floor, the phone clutched in her hand like a live grenade. I don't know where he is. He disappeared 3 weeks ago. I haven't heard from him since. But you're carrying his child. It wasn't a question. It was a statement of fact delivered with chilling certainty. I don't know you. I'm not discussing my personal life with a stranger. Please don't contact me again. She moved to block the number. And then the message came that stopped her heart completely. You live at 1843 Astoria Boulevard, apartment 4B. You work at Hazen and Wilson Law Firm on 52nd Street. You leave your apartment at 7:15 every morning and stop at the corner cafe for a large vanilla latte. You've been alone since Mark left. You're scared, broke, and have no idea what you're going to do about that baby. Narrator, deep, protective, gentleman, every man understands that moment. When you realize you're not the hunter. You're the prey. And you've been in someone's crosshairs for longer than you knew. Eliza couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. They'd been watching her. For how long? Days? Weeks? I know everything about you, Eliza Reynolds. And now I know about the baby, too. Her name. They knew her name. What do you want from me? The answer came swift and cold. Information. Mark stole something that belongs to me before he ran. $2 million and a flash drive with sensitive data. I want it back. I don't have any money or flash drive. I barely knew Mark, it seems. Whatever he took, he didn't give it to me. Maybe you don't know you have it. Maybe he hid it. Either way, we need to talk. In person. No. I'm not meeting you. If you contact me again, I'll go to the police. She waited for the threat, the escalation. Instead, there was silence. 1 minute. 2. 5. Maybe her bluff had worked. Maybe the pounding on her door shattered the quiet like a gunshot. Sound effect, heavy door pounding, Miss Reynolds. A deep voice, calm and authoritative. We need you to come with us. Music CUE, intensity rising, the offer SHE couldn't refuse. I've called the police, Eliza lied, her voice cracking. They're on their way. A low chuckle from the other side of the door. No, you haven't. Now, please open the door before we open it for you. Who are you? Mr. Castellano sent us to bring you to him. He's very interested in meeting the mother of his business partner's child. Castellano. The name meant nothing to her, but the way it was delivered, with weight, with certainty, told her it should. I'm not going anywhere with you. The voice on the other side softened, almost gentle. Miss Reynolds, you can come willingly and be treated as a guest, or we can force the issue and treat you as a problem to be solved. Mr. Castellano prefers the former, but he's prepared for the latter. Narrator, grim, sometimes your choices get stripped away. Sometimes you're left with nothing but bad options and worse outcomes. And sometimes, you have to trust your instincts about which monster might let you survive the night. I need to get dressed. You have 3 minutes. Eliza moved on autopilot. Jeans. Sweater. Boots. Phone and keys, though she suspected neither would help where she was going. Her hand rested briefly on her stomach. I'll protect you, she whispered to the tiny life inside her. A promise she had no idea how to keep. She opened the door. Two men in black suits filled her narrow hallway. Professional. Blank-faced. Their eyes assessed her with cold efficiency. Miss Reynolds. Mr. Castellano is waiting. They escorted her down the stairs, out to a black SUV with tinted windows. And that's when she saw it. On the roof of her building, bathed in moonlight. A helicopter. Pause, 2 seconds, the blades began to turn, cutting through the night air with a rhythmic thump that vibrated in her chest. Narrator, building to revelation, because whoever this Castellano was, he wasn't just some street-level criminal. He was power. He was resources. He was the kind of man who sent helicopters to collect pregnant women in the middle of the night. And Eliza Reynolds was about to meet him. But what happened when she did would shock everyone involved. Including him. The Mafia boss. The estate appeared below them like something from another world. Sprawling grounds, mansion overlooking the Hudson, helicopter pad illuminated with perimeter lights. Old money. The kind that whispered rather than shouted. When the helicopter touched down, Eliza was escorted along a stone path toward the house. It loomed against the starry sky, ivy climbing ancient walls, windows glowing with amber light. The massive wooden door opened before they reached it. A slender woman in her 50s, silver-streaked hair pulled back severely, stood waiting. Miss Reynolds. Follow me. Mr. Castellano doesn't like to be kept waiting. The interior was museum quality. Soaring ceilings. Marble floors. Artwork that belonged behind velvet ropes, not in a private home. Eliza's cheap boots clicked against the floor, each step echoing her displacement. They stopped at double doors at the end of a long hallway. The woman knocked softly, then opened one door and gestured Eliza inside. Wait here. The study was all leather and old books, floor-to-ceiling shelves filled with volumes that looked older than the country itself. A massive desk dominated the space, its surface clear except for a laptop and a single file folder. Behind it, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the river, moonlight casting silver ribbons across dark water. Eliza stood in the center of the room, afraid to touch anything, afraid to even sit without permission. Minutes crawled past, each one stretching her nerves tighter. Then the door opened behind her. Music CUE, deep, authoritative, the man who entered moved like a predator. Unhurried. Deliberate. Aware of his power. Taller than she expected, broad-shouldered but lean, dressed in a charcoal suit tailored to perfection. Dark hair threaded with silver at the temples framed a face that might have been carved from stone. Deep-set eyes studied her with unsettling intensity. This was Castellano. Miss Reynolds, he said, his voice a low baritone with the faintest trace of Italian accent. Thank you for joining me this evening. As if she'd had a choice. Narrator, shift to analysis. Now, here's what every man needs to understand about power. Real power doesn't announce itself. Doesn't need to. It's in the way a man moves. The way he speaks. The absolute certainty that the room bends to his will, not the other way around. Vito Castellano had that power. You could feel it in the air around him. He gestured to a leather armchair near the unlit fireplace. Please. Sit. He poured amber liquid into 2 crystal glasses, handed one to her. I don't drink, she said, her voice steadier than she felt. And I shouldn't anyway. Because of the baby, he finished, taking the glass back. He replaced it with water from a hidden refrigerator. Of course. Mark's baby. The way he said Mark's name sent chills down her spine. Where is Mark? Castellano studied her for a long moment before answering. I was hoping you might tell me that. I told you already. I don't know. He disappeared 3 weeks ago. No warning. No explanation. Her voice cracked. I thought he loved me. A bitter smile touched his lips. Mark Tanner is very good at making people believe what he wants them to believe. You speak about him in present tense, Eliza observed. So he's not dead? Castellano finished. Not yet. Though when I find him, he may wish he were. Pause, 1 second, the casual reference to murder made her blood run cold. What did he do to you? Castellano leaned forward, his eyes never leaving hers. Mark Tanner worked for me for 5 years. He was brilliant with numbers, with patterns. I trusted him with my financial operations. And then 3 weeks ago, he disappeared with $2 million of my money and information that could destroy everything I've built. He paused, watching her reaction carefully. The question, Miss Reynolds, is how much you know about any of this. Nothing, Eliza insisted. I thought he was an investment banker. We met a year ago, started dating. He moved some things into my apartment 6 months ago, but kept his own place too. He said it was closer to work. She laughed hollowly. I guess that was just another lie. Castellano studied her for what felt like an eternity. Finally, he nodded. I believe you. The words should have brought relief. Instead, they left her more afraid. Then why am I here? He stood, moving to the windows, his back to her as he looked out at the river. Because Mark Tanner will come back for you. And when he does, I'll be waiting. Narrator, protective anger, and there it was. The truth she'd feared from the moment she stepped into that helicopter. She wasn't a guest. She was bait. The worm on the hook, waiting for the fish to bite. You're using me. I'm protecting you, he corrected, turning to face her. Mark didn't just steal from me, Eliza. He sold information to rivals. People who wouldn't hesitate to use you to get to him. People who wouldn't care that you're carrying his child. The implication settled over her like a shroud. There are others looking for him. For me. Yes. But this way, at least I can ensure your safety. And the safety of the child. And then what? After you find Mark and get back what he stole. What happens to me then? Something flashed in his eyes. Not anger. Something deeper. That depends on you. Before she could ask what he meant, the door opened. A man entered, speaking rapidly in Italian. Castellano's expression darkened. He replied sharply in the same language. When the man left, Castellano turned back to her, suddenly all business. We need to go inside now. Why? What's happening? He took her arm, guiding her to her feet with firm but gentle pressure. One of my sources has informed me that the people I mentioned, the ones who would use you to get to Mark, have learned of your whereabouts. Or at least, where you were yesterday. Terror shot through her. They went to my apartment. Yes. Fortunately, you weren't there. His grip on her arm tightened slightly. This confirms what I told you. You're safer here than anywhere else right now. As they moved through the hallways, Eliza noticed what she'd missed before. The gardener she'd passed outside straightened from his roses, revealing a gun holstered at his hip. Another groundskeeper spoke quietly into a communications device. The peaceful estate transformed before her eyes into a fortress. How many of your people are watching us right now? Enough, Castellano replied. My home is the most secure location in the tri-state area. No one gets in or out without my knowledge and permission. He led her to his study, closing the door behind them. I need to make some calls. You'll stay here where I can keep an eye on you. As he picked up a secure phone and began speaking in rapid Italian, Eliza's eyes drifted to a shelf of family photographs. Castellano with an older man who shared his features. Castellano at a wedding, standing beside a beautiful woman in white. Castellano holding a baby, his expression softer than she'd seen it. He had a family. The realization humanized him in a way that made her uncomfortable. Monsters weren't supposed to have family photos. Weren't supposed to hold babies with such tenderness. My sister's wedding, Castellano said, having finished his call. He nodded toward the photo she'd been examining. 5 years ago. The baby is her son. My nephew. You have a large family? A shadow crossed his face. Once. My parents, 2 sisters, a brother. Now just 1 sister remains. With her husband and son. The implication hung between them. His family had been victims of the violent world he inhabited. I'm sorry, she said softly. He acknowledged her sympathy with a slight nod. Family is everything, Eliza. It's what we fight for. What we die for, if necessary. His gaze dropped briefly to her midsection. You understand that now, I think. Her hand moved protectively to her stomach. Yes. Narrator, reflective, and that's when something shifted between them. When the captor and the captive found common ground in the most universal of human experiences. The instinct to protect those who can't protect themselves. A knock interrupted the moment. The same man from before entered. We've intercepted a message, sir. It appears Mark Tanner has been trying to contact Miss Reynolds. Eliza's heart jumped. What? How? The man looked to Castellano for permission before answering. An email was sent to your work account this morning. We've been monitoring all your communications since last night. The invasion of privacy should have angered her. Instead, she was too focused on the news about Mark. What did it say? Castellano nodded permission. Just 3 words, the man said. Are you safe? Pause, 2 seconds, narrator, building tension, 3 words. That's all it took to reignite every confused emotion Eliza had tried to bury. Because despite everything, the abandonment, the lies, the danger he'd brought into her life, a part of her still remembered the man she'd fallen in love with. Or the man she'd thought she'd fallen in love with. But was Mark genuinely concerned about her? Or was this just another manipulation in a game she was only beginning to understand? Castellano's next words would answer that question. And the answer would change everything. The trap, he knows, Castellano said, his expression darkening. He knows you're no longer at your apartment. He's reaching out to confirm his suspicions. Or he's genuinely concerned about me, Eliza countered. Castellano's laugh was without humor. Mark Tanner is concerned only with himself and his survival. If he's reaching out now, it's because he needs something. You don't know that. I know Mark better than you think, Castellano said, his voice hardening. I recognized his talent early. Brought him into my organization when he was in his 20s. I mentored him. Trusted him. Treated him like family. His voice turned cold as steel. And he repaid that trust by stealing from me and selling information that got my people killed. The vehemence in his voice silenced her. This wasn't just about money. This was personal. This was betrayal of the deepest kind. What are you going to do? Reply to his message, Castellano said. Draw him out. Using me as bait. Using the situation to our mutual advantage, he corrected. You want answers from Mark. So do I. This may be our opportunity to get them. Eliza wanted to argue, to refuse. But the truth was, she did want answers. Why had Mark left? Had any of what they shared been real? Did he know about the baby? Would he care? What would the reply say? Castellano studied her carefully. The truth. Or a version of it. That you're safe but not at home. That you know what he did. That you need to see him. Over the next hour, they crafted the message together. Each word calculated to draw Mark out without revealing too much. I'm staying with friends outside the city. I know what you did, what you took. We need to talk. About the baby. The mention of the baby had been Eliza's suggestion. If Mark was going to risk meeting her, he deserved to know why it mattered. His response came swiftly. baby? What baby? And then, minutes later, are you pregnant, Eliza? The raw shock in those simple words convinced her that Mark truly hadn't known. Whether that absolved him or added another layer to his betrayal, she wasn't sure. After several more exchanges, carefully monitored by Castellano, Mark agreed to meet. A public cafe in Manhattan. Neutral ground. The meeting was set for 3 o'clock the next afternoon. Narrator, tension mounting, and as Eliza stood before the mirror the next day, examining her reflection in the elegant navy dress Castellano had provided, she had no idea that she was walking into something far more dangerous than a simple reunion. Because Mark Tanner had made deals with people even more ruthless than Vito Castellano. And they were waiting, too. The meeting the cafe was upscale but understated. The kind of place where privacy was respected and conversations remained hushed. Castellano's men had secured a table by the window, visible from the street, but not too exposed. "I'll be watching," Castellano promised as she stepped out of the SUV. "Every moment. If anything feels wrong, use the code word." "Honeymoon," Eliza confirmed, her mouth dry. He'd fastened a diamond pendant around her neck before they left, beautiful, but also functional. It contained a tracking device and microphone. "Be careful, Eliza," he'd said, his hand briefly covering hers. "Mark is desperate. And desperate men are dangerous." Now she sat alone at the reserved table, hands trembling around a cup of herbal tea, watching the entrance. 3 o'clock came and went. By 1:15, anxiety had her stomach in knots. At 3:25, just as she was beginning to think he wouldn't come, she saw him. Mark entered from a side entrance, moving quickly between tables. Baseball cap. Sunglasses. He was thinner than she remembered, disheveled, his designer clothes replaced by jeans and a worn leather jacket. But it was him. Pause, 1 second, their eyes met across the room. Relief. Recognition. Fear. And something else. Guilt. He slid into the chair across from her, removing his sunglasses but keeping the cap low. "Eliza. Thank God you're all right." He reached for her hands. She pulled them back before he could touch her. "Am I?" she asked quietly. "All right?" He glanced around nervously, scanning for threats. "I've been worried sick." "How did you get away from your apartment? Where are you staying?" "With friends," she replied, using the vague term from their messages. "People who can protect me." His expression darkened. "What friends, Eliza? Who exactly have you been talking to?" She ignored his question, focusing on what mattered most. "I'm pregnant, Mark." His eyes widened, dropping to her stomach though there was nothing visible yet. "You're sure? It's mine." The implication stung. "Yes. 8 weeks along. And yes, it's yours." He ran a hand through his hair, a gesture so familiar it made her heart ache despite everything. "Jesus, Eliza. I didn't know." "How could you?" she said, unable to keep the bitterness from her voice. "You disappeared. 3 weeks without a word. I thought something had happened to you. I thought you were dead." Guilt flashed across his face. "I'm sorry. I had to leave quickly. It wasn't safe to contact you. Because of what you stole from Castellano." Mark's face went rigid with shock. "How do you know that name?" She touched the diamond pendant at her throat, suddenly conscious of the microphone capturing every word. "You used his number as your business contact in my phone. I accidentally sent him the ultrasound image when I was trying to text Jenna." Mark's face drained of color. You texted Castellano? My ultrasound?" "I didn't know who he was," she said defensively. "I was trying to tell my best friend I was pregnant and somehow I ended up texting your boss instead." "He's not my boss," Mark hissed, leaning forward. "He's a monster, Eliza. A killer. The things I've seen him do. He broke off, eyes darting around the cafe again. How much have you told him? Does he know you're meeting me? Eliza hesitated, uncertain how much to reveal. But the fear in Mark's eyes made the decision for her. He knows everything, Mark. He sent me here. Music CUE, sharp string stab. Mark recoiled as if she'd slapped him. You're working with him? After what he's done? What choice did I have? She demanded. He sent a helicopter to my apartment, Mark. Men with guns. What was I supposed to do? Understanding dawned in his eyes, followed by horror. He's keeping you prisoner. He calls me his protected guest. Mark reached for her hand again, and this time she didn't pull away. His fingers were cold, his grip desperate. Listen to me, Eliza. You need to get away from him. He's only using you to get to me. Once he has what he wants, you're disposable to him. You and the baby both. A chill ran through her. Was he right? The Russians are after you too, she said, remembering Castellano's warnings. They came to my apartment looking for me. Mark nodded grimly. They want what I took as well. Information about Castellano's operation. It's valuable to them. Valuable enough to kill for. Then why take it? Why risk your life, our lives, for this? His expression softened. For us, Eliza. For a future together, away from all this. $2 million is enough to disappear. To start over somewhere safe. The picture he painted was seductive. A new life. A fresh start. Their child raised far from this violence. But something didn't add up. If it was for us, why didn't you tell me? Why disappear without a word? He looked away, guilt written across his features. I wanted to protect you. Keep you separate from it all. I was going to come back for you once I'd arranged everything. New identities. A place to live. But the Russians found me faster than I expected. I've been running ever since. And now? Mark leaned closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. I have a plan. A way out for both of us. There's a boat waiting at a private dock. We can be out of the country by tonight. Somewhere neither Castellano nor the Russians can find us. Narrator, warning tone, now, here's where every man's instincts should be screaming. Because when something sounds too good to be true, when the easy escape is dangled in front of you right when you need it most. That's when you need to look closer. Just like that? Eliza asked. Leave everything behind? What's here worth staying for? Mark countered. Your job. Your apartment. Those things can be replaced, Eliza. Our lives can't. Our baby's life can't. The mention of their child made her protective instincts flare. How would we even get out of here? There are guards everywhere. Mark smiled, a flash of his old confidence. Already taken care of. There's a service exit through the kitchen. A car is waiting in the alley. By the time Castellano's men realize you're gone, we'll be halfway to the harbor. The plan was reckless. Dangerous. But it offered freedom. A chance to choose her own path rather than being a pawn. She touched the diamond pendant again, acutely aware that Castellano was hearing every word. The code word hovered on her lips. Honeymoon. The signal that would bring his men rushing in. But she hesitated. What about the Russians? If they're watching too. They're focused on me, not you, Mark assured her. I've been careful. We have a window of opportunity, but it's closing fast. He squeezed her hand urgently. We need to go now, Eliza. Right now. She looked into his eyes, searching for the man she'd fallen in love with. He was there. Beneath the fear and desperation. Or was that just what she wanted to see? Pause, 2 seconds, okay, she whispered. Let's go. Narrator, foreboding, and that's when Eliza Reynolds made the mistake that would nearly cost her everything. Because Mark Tanner wasn't leading her to freedom. He was leading her straight into the hands of the Russian Mafia. And he'd known it all along. The betrayal. They moved casually toward the back of the cafe, as if heading to the restrooms. Eliza could feel eyes on them but didn't dare look back. They pushed through the swinging door into the kitchen, startling the staff, heading for the service entrance at the rear. They burst into the alley, cold air hitting Eliza's face like a slap. A nondescript sedan idled nearby, engine running. Mark hurried her toward it, glancing frantically over his shoulder. Almost there. Just a few more steps and we're free. The driver's window rolled down, revealing a face Eliza didn't recognize. Hard. Scarred. Cold eyes that assessed her with clinical interest. "This her?" the man asked in a heavily accented voice. Mark nodded. "Yes. Let's go." Something in the exchange made Eliza falter. The man wasn't looking at her with indifference. He was looking at her like she was valuable merchandise. "Mark," she said slowly, pulling back slightly. "Who is this?" "Just a friend," Mark said impatiently, tugging her forward. "Come on, we don't have time." But it was too late. The pieces were falling into place with horrifying clarity. The Russian accent. The predatory assessment. The too convenient escape plan. "You're not running from the Russians," Eliza whispered, horror dawning. "You're working with them." Mark's expression confirmed her suspicion before he could deny it. "It's complicated, Eliza. Castellano was going to kill me. I needed protection. The Bratva offered me a deal. The information and half the money in exchange for their help." "And me?" she asked, her voice breaking. "Was I part of the deal too?" His silence was answer enough. She pulled away from him with sudden strength, but his grip tightened, fingers digging painfully into her arm. "Don't make this difficult," he hissed, all pretense of tenderness gone. "Get in the car." "No. The child is valuable to them," he said, his voice low and urgent. "Insurance that I'll continue to cooperate." "They won't hurt you, Eliza. Not if you're carrying my baby." Narrator, cold fury, and that, gentlemen, is when you see a man for what he truly is. Not what he pretends to be. Not what you hoped he was. But what he's always been underneath. Mark Tanner wasn't a man. He was a coward wrapped in expensive clothes, selling out the woman carrying his child to save his own skin. The cold calculation in his words turned Eliza's blood to ice. "Honeymoon," she said clearly. Loudly. Mark's face contorted with rage. "What did you say?" "Honeymoon," she repeated, fighting against his grip with renewed desperation. "It's over, Mark." The Russian in the car barked something in his native language, reaching for what Eliza knew instinctively was a weapon. Mark yanked her roughly toward the vehicle, his fingers bruising her arm. And then chaos erupted. Sound effects, screeching tires, shouting, black SUVs screamed into both ends of the alley, blocking any escape. Men in tactical gear poured out, weapons drawn. The Russian driver raised his gun. A shot rang out. The windshield shattered as he slumped forward. Mark dragged Eliza in front of him, using her as a shield as he backed toward the cafe's service entrance. "Stay back," he shouted. "I'll kill her." She felt something hard press against her side. A gun she hadn't known he was carrying. Terror paralyzed her. Her hands moved instinctively to protect her stomach. "Let her go, Mark." Music CUE, deep, commanding, the voice was calm. Authoritative. Cutting through the chaos like a blade. Vito Castellano emerged from the shadows of the alley. No tactical gear. No visible weapon. Yet radiating more danger than any of the armed men surrounding them. "Stay back, Castellano," Mark called, his voice edged with panic. "I'll do it." I swear to God I'll shoot her. Castellano continued his slow approach, his gaze locked on Mark. No, you won't. Because the moment you harm her, you lose your only bargaining chip. The only thing keeping you alive right now. Eliza could feel Mark's heart hammering against her back, his breath coming in rapid gasps. I want safe passage, he demanded. A car. Clear roads to the harbor. Then you get your flash drive back. Castellano stopped about 10 feet away, his expression almost pitying. You really don't understand your position, do you, Mark? The Russians have abandoned you. Your driver is dead. My men control every exit. There is no escape. I'll kill her. Mark threatened again, the gun digging painfully into Eliza's ribs. I swear I will. No, Castellano said simply. You won't. Pause, 1 second, what happened next occurred so quickly Eliza barely registered the sequence of events. A red dot appeared on Mark's temple. A sniper's laser sight. In that split second of distraction, Eliza drove her elbow back into his solar plexus with all her strength, just as Castellano had taught her during one of their self-defense lessons over the past 3 days. Mark's grip loosened just enough. She dropped to the ground. Castellano's men swarmed forward, subduing Mark with brutal efficiency. They disarmed him, forced him to his knees. He didn't resist. The fight drained out of him as quickly as it had appeared. His eyes sought Eliza's as she was helped to her feet, his expression a mixture of rage and desperation. Eliza, don't let them do this. Think of our baby. The invocation of their child, the child he'd been willing to sell to the Russians, ignited a cold fury within her. You lost the right to mention my baby when you tried to use us as bargaining chips, she said, her voice steadier than she expected. Whatever happens to you now, you've earned it. Narrator, satisfied, and that's justice. Not revenge. Not cruelty. Just the natural consequence of betraying every principle that makes a man worth respecting. Castellano appeared at Eliza's side, his hand gentle on her elbow as he steered her away from the scene. Are you hurt? She shook her head, though in truth she felt broken in ways that had nothing to do with physical pain. No. I'm fine. He nodded, his expression softening slightly. You did well, Eliza. Very well. As they approached the waiting SUV, Eliza glanced back at Mark, still kneeling in the alley, surrounded by armed men. What will happen to him? Castellano's expression hardened. He'll tell us where the rest of the money is. Where the flash drive is hidden. Names of his Russian contacts. He met her gaze directly. And then justice will be served for his betrayal. She should have felt horror at the implied death sentence. Instead, she felt a cold detachment. The man she'd loved no longer existed. Perhaps had never existed at all. Pause, 2 seconds, as the SUV pulled away from the alley, Eliza leaned her head against the cool window, exhaustion washing over her. Castellano sat beside her, close but not touching. A solid presence that had somehow transformed from captor to protector. What happens now? She asked quietly. Castellano was silent for a moment, his gaze fixed on the city passing outside. That depends on you, he said finally. The immediate danger has passed. Mark will give us what we need to neutralize the Russian threat. You could return to your life. If that's what you want. The offer of freedom should have filled her with joy. Instead, it left her feeling strangely hollow. Return to what? Her tiny apartment. Her mundane job. A life where she'd raise a child alone, always looking over her shoulder. And if that's not what I want? Castellano turned to her then, his dark eyes holding hers with an intensity that made her breath catch. Then perhaps we could come to another arrangement. One that ensures the safety and security of both you and your child. The implication hung between them. Protection. Security. A life within his world, dangerous, perhaps, but also powerful. A world where her child would never want for anything. Would never be vulnerable as she had been. I need time, she said. To think. He nodded, respect in his gaze. Of course. Take all the time you need. My home remains open to you regardless of your decision. The choice 3 weeks later, Eliza stood in a garden where she'd first talked with Castellano, her hand resting on her stomach. The baby was still too small to feel, but she knew it was there. Growing. Thriving. Protected. She'd learned much in those weeks. About Castellano's world. About his code. About the difference between criminals who prey on the innocent and those who operate by strict, if unconventional, principles. Vito Castellano was a dangerous man. A killer when necessary. But he was also a man of his word. A protector of those under his care. A father figure to his nephew, a devoted brother to his sister. And to Eliza, he becomes something unexpected. A friend. Perhaps, in time, something more. She heard footsteps behind her. Turned to find him approaching, dressed casually in slacks and a sweater, looking more relaxed than she'd seen him. You wanted to see me? She nodded, her decision made. I'm staying, she said simply. If the offer still stands. Something flickered in his eyes. Relief? Pleasure? It stands. It will always stand. He moved closer, close enough that she could smell his cologne. Sandalwood and spice. A scent she'd come to associate with safety. I can't promise you a normal life, Eliza. My world is complicated. Dangerous at times. But I can promise you this, you and your child will never want for anything. We'll never be unprotected. We'll always have a place here. She looked up at him, this complicated, dangerous, unexpectedly gentle man. What about Mark? Mark Tanner is no longer a concern, Castellano said quietly. He gave us what we needed. And justice was served. She didn't ask for details. Didn't need to. And the baby? His hand moved, hovering just above her stomach, asking silent permission. She nodded. His palm settled gently over the place where their child, Mark's biological child, but no longer his in any way that mattered, grew. This child will be raised with honor, Castellano said softly. With strength. With the knowledge that family is more than blood. It's loyalty. Protection. Love. He met her eyes. If you'll allow me, I'd like to be part of that family. Narrator, warm, contemplative, and that, gentlemen, is how a mistaken text message led to the most unexpected family imaginable. Was it conventional? No. Was it perfect? Hardly. But sometimes the wrong number is exactly the right call. Eliza Reynolds had sent an ultrasound to a Mafia boss by mistake. And in doing so, she'd found something she'd never had before. Real protection. Real security. Real family. Not the family she'd imagined. But the family she needed. Music CUE, resolution, hope. 6 months later, Eliza gave birth to a healthy baby girl in a private room at the best hospital in New York, with Vito Castellano holding her hand through every contraction. They named her Sophia. After his mother. And when Vito held that tiny life in his arms for the first time, looked down at the daughter that wasn't his by blood but was his in every way that mattered, Eliza saw something she'd never expected to see in a Mafia boss's eyes. Tears. Thank you, he whispered, his voice rough with emotion. For trusting me. For giving me this. Thank you, she replied, for being there when no one else was. Narrator, final reflection, because that's what real strength looks like, brothers. It's not abandoning people when things get hard. It's not selling out the ones you're supposed to protect. It's not using the vulnerable as shields. Real strength is standing up when everyone else runs. It's keeping your promises even when it costs you. It's protecting those who can't protect themselves, not because you'll get something out of it, but because it's the right thing to do. Vito Castellano was a criminal. Let's not pretend otherwise. But he was also a man of honor in a world desperately short of it. And sometimes, the wrong number leads you exactly where you need to be. Even if it's to the door of the most dangerous man in New York. Pause, 3 seconds, narrator, warn closing, so the next time life throws you a curveball, the next time you make a mistake that seems catastrophic, remember Eliza. Remember that sometimes our worst accidents become our greatest blessings. That sometimes the people we're taught to fear are the ones who'll protect us most fiercely. And that family, real family, isn't always the one you're born into. Sometimes it's the one you choose. Or the one that chooses you. Even if it starts with a misdirected ultrasound and a mafia boss's helicopter landing on your roof at midnight.